Oh, it was added. No, sorry. This kid's sick in his house.
Thank you, brother. You know, I don't know what happened, but I think Kobe was doing the actual.
Yeah, he was in the
He's going back next year.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Actually,
If you don't do new event,
selling.
you have to do new event. You know? Yeah, you do new event.
Yeah, I usually do that.
If you don't do it,
Yeah.
it records privately. It'll be recording, but it won't stream.
Okay.
So you have to make sure it's a new event, and then it automatically, and then it gives you a choice, public, private.
Yeah, no, so I've been doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's annoying because if you do it,
and you don't do that.
the time that you do it is already passed.
Oh yeah,
And it takes forever to publish.
Yeah. I just I check it every I check it every time. So, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it, brother. Soon already. Good to see. Good. You go across, okay. No one's watching you. One person is not. That's it.
I don't think that guy's moving.
By you, brother. You got it. Brush your stuck over.
Thank you, the Parnes HaShana, sponsoring לעילוי, נשמת גדליה and Rabbi Shimon, Gdalya and Simcha Nafas and
Amen.
Bayom Darkecha, the parak of the Maimer of Kedusha, the parak Gimel, page Kuf Chav Gimel. Dibur Machshav. We've spoken about this over the years, the connection between Kedusha's HaYesod, the Midah of Yesod, the Midah of Yosef HaTzadik, and Kedusha's HaDibur, and speech. So Kasher HaYetzahara Lo Matzliach in the middle of page Kufav Gimel. Kasher HaYetzahara Lo Matzliach Lahafilas Adam Avinas HaYesod. The Yisar is not matzliach to bring a person down when it comes to the midah of Yosef HaTzadik. You could work on both also, so it's not like it's one or the other. But that taiva, the taiva of Arias and the taiva to say things, to speak, comes from the same place. To say things that are not what should be said, things that should not be said, comes from the same place. And so on. Using our words in the wrong way. And a person can be, what he's saying is that a person can be very careful when it comes to the midah of Yesod, the midah of Yosef HaTzadik. He's very, very careful with Shmir Serviz, but he releases his this taiva when it comes to the way that he speaks about other people. His whole way of dibur is not good, and the result is the same. As It's like Kol Or HaKedusha, the whole light of Kedusha. Because just as Kedusha is tied up to the midah of Yosef Tzaddik, it's also to the midah of Dibur, of speaking. So the whole light of Kedusha, Barech v'yotze derech hapeh, comes to the mouth. Kvar lo yargish tam b'avodas Hashem, and the person will not feel any tam, anything in his avodas Hashem. And he doesn't understand why not. Here he's conducting himself in the way of Kedusha, but he doesn't feel any tam in avodas Hashem. V'yiskasha lochush ahava v'yiru udveikus rachman l'slam. It'll be very difficult for this person to feel any ahava, yiru, udveikus b'Hashem. U'ma'id tzarich li'zayir shlo l'daber, next page, diburim she'en motzar havari. One has to be very careful not to say words that are not the Rizayim Hashem. Kol sheken lishmar sepem ha'ayit, to guard the mouth. Very carefully, shaladav shum dibur shlo b'kedusha chas v'shalom, to say words that shalo b'kedusha, that are not b'kedusha. Ki medaber chas v'shalom dibur she'enu shel kedusha, because when a person says words that are not words of kedusha, yochel ha'hapsid ha'kol, he can lose everything. V'afilu nifzak lo gedula dari yochel ha'chman l'son la'abed ha'kol, even if it's a person that could be very, very, very great, he loses everything. Because the chatoim, the averis of dibur are from the lowest and the worst. Midatayvim ruba, and in a good way, midatayvim ruba. Mishazarche lishma piv b'kedusha, a person who's careful to guard his mouth b'kedusha. Nimshach loy melucha u'kedusha. He's able to bring into his life, and his children and grandchildren, Kedusha, B'zaychele Brisi Shalom, like Pinchas, Brisi Shalom, Shezachele Kuhuna L'Daridaris, who not only raised himself, but the whole Kahuna comes from Pinchas, the Daridaris. So this includes, of course, many areas of speech. And it's much more subtle, obviously, because when it comes to the Avodah of Yosef Tzaddik and Shmir Sabris, so everything is much more obvious. It's not as subtle what a person looks at and how a person conducts himself. Masha'anake, when it comes to speaking, it's much more subtle. It's much more difficult. And the person, the way that we operate is that we could think of ourselves as being perfectly okay, when in truth, the words are very, very damaging and very hurtful. Lashon Hara is a whole world, and so many halachas. It's a very, very hard avodah. Because when the fact is that we live among many people, and they're tremendous nisyonis to speak about the things that we see in other people, especially with husband and wife, to be very, very relaxed in how they speak about other people and so on, family members, brothers and sisters. There are times that you can't avoid them. We're together with many people, and you hear things. There's no easy way to avoid all of this, but lehikanas the rishpei shall have his car. Because the highest path is to be a person that is on fire with dveikus b'Hashem. When a person's mind is focused on dveikus b'Hashem, he's not interested in hearing, and he doesn't listen to or care about lashon hara. And if you already heard something, not to be makabel it. According to halacha. Okay, the way of dveikus is very high madrega. For a person to be on that level where he's not open for business, that's a very big madrega. The straightest path is the leches tamid im das shel shalom. There are people that are like that, and that's something which we could all aspire to live with a constant in a constant way of thinking, which is called Das Shel Shalom. Das Shel Shalom. What does that mean, Das Shel Shalom? Das Shel Shalom means that one's entire way of looking at Am Yisrael, and Bechlal, not just Am Yisrael, but Bechlal. But certainly looking at Am Yisrael is that Hashem has many different ways in this world. Yeshivim Panim Torah, and there are many ways to live a life of Torah. Yeshivim Panim, many interpretations of Torah. V'liray says Nekudas ha'emes v'atoiv etzel kol Yehudi b'chol derech, and to see what is good, and to see what's emes and what's good by each person, to live in a positive way. In a way of Das Shel Shalom. B'chol derech, when you look at people in that way, this way of Das Shel Shalom, so then you're not focused on the negative things about people, to speak about people, to say things and so on. B'chol derech, and every derech, in this way of Das Shel Shalom, ki kulam miskavdim l'avos Hashem yisbarach. Of course, that's harder when the people that are not religious at all. But even there, to see to be a way of being done in kaskus, and to see good in people and Das Shel Shalom, and if they're not shomim mitzvahs, to understand the reasons why they're not shomim mitzvahs. It's not because they're rebelling against HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chulei v'chulei. But the truth is that we lose a great deal, not only through diburim that are forbidden, that are lashon hara and chilus and nivel peh and so on, and a lot of when it comes to nivel peh, means speaking in a vulgar way. And again, I don't want to be marach with all of this because we understand what it means, and I'm not going into depth, but it's crept into a lot of the way that the people speak, just because by being at work and being among other, and that to talk in a way, tell jokes in a way, and say things that are not appropriate, that are not something that Chofetz Chaim would be proud of if he heard us talking. And I'm even Yovan, to speak in a way that's not clean doesn't mean that a person has to actually use 4-letter words. There are words that have 3 letters and that have 12 letters that are also used incorrectly and inappropriately. So, but then besides diburim v'isa, there's also diburim v'shus. V'davar motzu shekasher adam esalam ma'at be'ezet tefillah v'chadayma as I'm yad magil of nisan shel diburim yiser. It's a very common thing that when a person is davka doing well in his Avodah Hashem, tefillah and so on, that he's tested when it comes to something which seems to him not to be so major, which is diburim yiser, saying things that he shouldn't be saying. V'im lo yizahir yira shehifsid es aliyah shekibel. And if he's not careful with what he says, then he'll see that all of the aliyah that he's experienced through his davening, through his learning, he could lose very easily. And this is a tremendous yesod. This is really the only way. Haderechi is l'ma'id b'dibur she'eino nitzvach. To begin to think about cutting down on the amount of words that we speak. Doesn't mean to be unfriendly. The Chofetz Chaim is very friendly. It doesn't mean to be silent. That people should say, "What's wrong with you? How come you're not talking? What happened to you?" It doesn't mean that. But to count more, to be more conscious of how much we're saying, and how a lot of what we're saying doesn't need to be said, even when it comes to the Dvarim Shel Hata. To live with a consciousness of speaking, of what I'm saying, to think about what we're saying. And we're not used to that, and we weren't raised that way. Defense, the guard, and so on. Chachma shtika is silence. And what a person has to say, as I To think about what you're saying before you say it. That seems very obvious, but it's not obvious at all. We all know that. And even if we can't begin to be, to be pure in this avoda, but certainly every one of us could take a certain time of the day or to try a certain amount of time each day that we're going to actually try to think very carefully about what we say, about the words that come out. Look at footnote Reish Beis. Of course, the person often feels that he's chayiv to say something. This must be said. Now, most of the people that are listening don't feel that way, don't agree with him. He feels that he's chayiv to say this. And he's afraid that if he doesn't say this now, he's not going to remember to say it at some other time. Said, it's going to lose out. He needs to say this. It's important to say. Everybody's waiting to hear what he has to say. So what happens very often is that while somebody else is trying to speak to you, you interrupt him with what you want to say, because we're not used to holding back what we want to say. So while somebody else is speaking, you interrupt. Or you do say things and you feel upset. People are not paying attention to you. They're not listening to you. So you should think. It's not going to make a difference in the world if you say this or you don't say this. You think that it's going to make a huge difference in the world, but it's not. If it's not the right time to say this, so then you shouldn't say it. And hakol, whatever needs to get done in the world, Hashem will take care of. And even if it's something that needs to be said, but it doesn't depend upon, with rare exceptions, it doesn't depend upon saying it right now. If we would think about it and stop and be quiet and maybe say it later on, it would come out in a much better way than just blurting it out now. We would stop and think. That's something that needs to be said. And things that don't need to be said, if we would stop and think, then we wouldn't say them at all. We'd just leave it. And what happens if you forget to say this later on? No. Doesn't depend upon whether you say it now or you don't say it. Even if it's something that you think that you must say. Don't press to say it. Don't push to say it. Even if it's something you think you should say now, doesn't mean to interrupt another person, or you have to say it now. The person feels they have to say this in shul, they have to say this in davening. Or there are things that a way that we react to something that we don't like, or the kid says something, or the kid's doing something, and you feel that you absolutely have to say this, like it's your obligation as a parent to speak out. There's a very strong likelihood that it would be much better not to say it. And if you would think about it, you would realize that it's not right to say. And the need to say it is coming from just your own taiva, your own yetzirah, not necessarily something that should be said or has to be said in any way. And don't push, don't press to say it. Don't get all worked up and angry and be upset that you can't say it or that you're holding back from saying it. To wait benachas. To wait. Yamtin benachas. I remember many times my father that he would tell me something about something that I said or did 2 weeks later. It was something that I very rarely, I didn't have with my father, like when I had my Indian that I was arguing for, he didn't get into an argument with me. I didn't have a din udvar. I really can't think of my father having an argument with me. He would tell me something, and that was it. But then if I had a whole Shaklavitaria, that I had a whole my Rashi Tosis on arguing with it. So I would say what was on my mind, and my father just listened to me, and then he didn't respond. But 2 weeks later, he'd say, "I want to talk to you about what you said." This is all the time. I could never get him into an argument. My mother's outside. That was field with my mother. I knew how to press the button, but with my father, no matter what, never ever did he argue with me. And there were 1 or 2 times when the kids were little, and he saw me having with one of the kids, like a shakavatari, and he'd pull me over and he would say, "What's the matter with you? You're arguing with her? She's 4 years old. What are you having a conversation? What are you doing with her? You're arguing. As you said something, and she has a svar not like you, and now you're bringing rayas from all over that you're right." And my father says, "Look, what's the matter with you? You're arguing with a child. You're arguing. You said what you have to say. Finish. And not doing it. You're making a whole thing and arguing." He never did that. Never had an argument ever with my father in my life. I'm sorry, I'm not exaggerating. There was no such thing. An argument. And my sister, my mother, nobody could get him into an argument. He would just listen, and then maybe at some point, usually not, but at some point later on, he would say, "Well, we spoke about, I think it's important that you understand." And sometime later, sometimes it was even months I didn't know what he was talking about. And they would say, "Remember, you were saying this? I don't think that's a good hour." He would tell me what he thought. And then it wasn't going into the whole thing back and forth. And that's an avoda. That's a big avoda. You don't have to feel a lachatz to say this right now. To say it right now. No, you lachatz la'omer. Lo yichas v'yitztar b'shul zeh. Yamtim benachas, to wait benachas. Oftentimes we say things we don't even think b'chlal whether the person is a kli to be makabel this, whether the child is a kli or the adult is a kli, or is this the right time to say this? The people, I don't know if you've experienced this as much, people like Motzei Tisha B'Av want to talk to you about something, or Motzei Yom Kippur, they have something on their minds, and everybody has things on their minds all the time. But why are you talking about that Motzei Yom Kippur? Why? I mean, I'm saying before people eat, that you feel that you have to talk about this right now. It's so important to you to be so insensitive to another person, to think what this person has in his life, because you're so wrapped up in yourself. You can't even wait until tomorrow or another time. You have to talk about this now. But you see this Kesed. So eventually you'll see. Watch how this works. I mean, everybody notices this. You'll have that. It could be on a Leil Shabbos. Something could be. I see this all the time. I'm waiting to say good Shabbos to people. I just want to say good Shabbos to people. And you have somebody that tries to get you into a whole conversation, and there are 150 people standing behind him just to say good Shabbos. And he wants to talk about this Indian that's on his mind. And lost some life that there are people that are just standing there waiting for him. We become so, and we it's very easy to fall into that. You don't think about other people, and then become totally insensitive. And it's such an inappropriate time to talk about this. Last night was actually by a very special thing to Zecher Rabbi Wallerstein, who was there for Ornava. And the second I walk in, some guy comes talking to me about this project that he's working on. I can't even say hello to Mrs. Wallerstein. I can't say hello to people that say, he starts to talk to me, when are we going to get together? I tried calling you last week, I don't know, but I tried calling you last week, and this is very important. This is not your Indian tonight. This is the Indian tonight is Ornava, not your Indian. But it's not. And here especially dangerous because the person feels this is a mitzvah I'm talking about. And then the diburim, and you can't talk to anybody else. I can't say hello. Actually, my daughter and son-in-law was standing 2 feet away from me. I wanted to say hello. They were there, and I couldn't say hello to Chana. I couldn't even talk to him. The guy doesn't let me talk to my daughter because he's got his Indian, and his Indian is a big mitzvah. What are you talking about? So talk a different time. We have to talk right now. But he feels, he's doing. It's especially dangerous when he feels you're doing Hashem's will. There are people that do that. They hijack you, they trap you, and they don't see that there's other people and other things it's something which we all make the same mistake. It's something which is very common. You feel like you have to say this right now. And you don't look to see the matzah that you're in and what's going on, what's happening around you. Wait until it's the right time, and you think about what you're going to say, and you decide this is the right thing to say. Then then say them. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, you have the people that when they open the door to come into shul, it's like they're walking in, like in the old Western, like walking like a cowboy. They open up the doors before they know there's even anybody listening. They're already talking. It doesn't have to be. It can be an empty room. The shul's empty. You have these people walk in talking out loud, and there's no. Just whoever happens to be here, please listen. I have something to say. Yiftach b'Hashem is Voshem Sorach Shadov Hazeh Yomer. As I besof Shadov Hu Yomer B'Tzur Hachitov, and trust in Hashem. If this is something that needs to be said, it'll be said at the right time, in the right way. It doesn't have to be said this second. You don't have to say it this second. V'Im Besoif Shachach, and if in the end you don't remember, then as Zoh Dira Shirotz Hashem's Vashal Yomer, then obviously Hashem didn't want it to be said. If you end up forgetting, you felt you have to say this. You have to say something to your wife, even to your children, or something to somebody else, and you don't remember to say it later. That means Hashem didn't want you to say it, and it's finished. So you didn't say it. So what? The ikar lishma al yishuv adas. The ikar is lishma al yishuv adas. To hold on to your yishuv adas. Mitoich emuna. B'sim libcha. And pay attention to this. How many times this happens, that dafka, when you feel that you must say something, it's a simon that what? That you must not say something. That's how the Yetzirah works. As sarach lishdog, to be, and instead, what really Hashem wants me at that moment is to be silent, ulahamtin, and to wait, and to deliberate over these words, to think about them. And only after you give it some time, you wait a little bit, then to speak. And if what happens very often is if you don't wait and you just can't hold back, again, it's compared to a person with a type of Aish that you can't hold yourself back, and it's like spilling. It's like that you spill the words out. And you'll see that. How many times you'll see that what I felt that had to be said, you feel regret that you said. That you never should have said it. It wasn't thought out, it wasn't the right way to say it, it wasn't the right time, it wasn't the right person. It wasn't something that needed to be said, and it shouldn't have been said. Back inside, in the last part of page 8, Kuf Dalet. This is the truth. This is something very deep. Besides that, you have to think about the actual words that you're saying. In Mu'emes, what I'm saying now is this the truth? Am I exaggerating? Is this the right thing to say, and so on? In Mu'emes, and this you see, and whether it's needed, that's what this means, dvekus is manadiba. But you see, especially now, when communication is also, you could say something on the phone, or on a message that you're giving, and then so on the phone if you stop for 1 second, you could delete it. Before the person sees it or hears it, you could delete it. But then there's so many times that you left a message and it wasn't even panim upon him, and you felt that you had to leave this message, and then afterwards you regret it. And this is going on all the time. You text something, you leave a voice message, when there was a time that we used to write letters. At Teva, when you're writing a letter, so it's more of a time of Yishuv Das when you're sitting and you're writing a letter. So we never had. There were phone calls, but it wasn't long distance, a whole Avoda, and we weren't using the phone the way that we didn't carry around the phone with us, and so on. And there was a way of life of writing letters to people. And when you write a letter, it's with Yishuv Hadas, and to think about and to reconsider and to cross out and to start again. There's imagine if a person if any of you have had to write things, like if you ever tried to write an essay, or you write a book, or you have to write some sort of a brief or a memo, it's something that's very important. It's going to make a big difference. A lot of people are going to see. You know that how many times you go over it in your head and you erase and you start again and you think, before a person starts a book or starts an article, the opening sentence is a very chashuv thing, and he thinks about it. But when we speak, we don't do that. It's like, this is my opening sentence. Don't think about it. It's just boom. It's not when you're writing something, and so it's with the Yishuv Hadas. But when you say something, it just comes out, and you can't bring it back. I mean, on the phone you could try to see if you can take it back, but when you're speaking, you can't take it back. So what does it mean? Gamli kanas the dvekus was on the page kuf. Again, this is a madrega. That when you're going to say something at the beginning, to try as much as you can to think. Of course, a person gets used to it. Tzadikim, what a person can stop for a second and think about is not just the words that you want to say or that you think you need to say, but to pause for a moment and to remember that dibur is from Hashem, that my ability to say something, my koch that I have to speak is from Hashem. And I'm supposed to be expressing the will of the Shechina through my words. I'm supposed to be a spokesperson in this world for what Hashem wants to be heard from me, for what Hashem wants me to say. We're just microphones. We're microphones we were given the koch to speak as a way to communicate the Ratzon of Hashem. That's why it's Vaydaber Hashem and Moshe Weinberger. It's by everybody. Vaydaber Hashem El, you can fill in your own name. Vaydaber Hashem El Leimer, El Baruch, El Yankov, whatever it is. Vaydaber Hashem El, fill in your name, Leimer. And that's how we were created. That's how Dibur was given to us. Vaydaber Hashem, and think of yourself, Leimer. And is this and what you're saying now? These words that you're saying now are these words that are Dvar Hashem? Or these words that Hashem is saying, no, that's not what I want. I'm not saying that. Ki Adam mitzad atzmo, because the person himself, mahu ma koich l'daber. What's a person? What koich does a person have? V'yitin pelo Adam. Who gave the person a mouth to say anything? El Hashem spoke on noisen das mal l'daber. As koich hadibra atzmo. V'adam hu rak hakli v'atzin l'kav. And very often those thoughts of things that you feel that you must say, it's just an nisayin from Hashem. For your bechira to choose not to say. Hashem gave each and every one of us the koach hadibur to say what he wants to be said. And a person gets used to this way. A person gets used to this, and he starts thinking in this way, that Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Leimer, that my koach hadibur is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to speak diburim, only the diburim that are pleasing to Him, and that are bringing the Dvar Hashem into the world. The more a person gets used to that, it's not a hard thing to think about that, at least from time to time, to try to go into that place of thinking. It's haflerefel. It's a wondrous way of trying to upgrade a person's speech. It's a tremendous way. You see, this bichlal is the whole sefer is the derech of Hashem, Tamid of Hashem. But the ikkur is not to think about this is disgusting. How could I? And all the negatives. To try to think of ways in a positive way, to lift one's diburim up to a higher place. Look at Reish Gimel. When you're able to, like you're just going someplace, to think about every breath, to think about the breath that you're breathing. How at that second, that moment, you're inhaling life. And Hashem is giving you that breath. Because at some point, all of us are going to stop doing that. Something in Swansea, we're going to stop doing that. And if any of you have ever felt at any time in life difficulty doing that, or like what was going on during COVID, many people felt that it was difficult to breathe, or Chalila person, and people died, and Chalila people that are sick with all kinds of sicknesses, you're short on breath. So that being able to be conscious of that gift, that what you're breathing, that what you're inhaling is that Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying to you that second, here's life. I'm giving you life. That's and that's Mekaver a person very, very much to this whole mahalach of living in a consciousness of what you're saying and what's coming, not just what's coming into your mouth at that moment, but you're inhaling. That will help you to become a person that's more careful of what is coming out of your mouth. There's a word from Tfer Shlomo that we learned over the years. He's on the pasuk Masas Se'achel Mokum Kodesh, the pasuk that always comes out by Pesach and by Parshas Tzav. It says Masas Se'achel Mokum Kodesh. That you should eat matzahs. It's talking about the Beis Hamikdash, the Mincha, from Mokum Kodesh, in a holy place. Tfer Shlomo says that it's going to be Pesach and you're going to put a lot of matzahs into your mouth. See to it that the matzahs go into a holy place. So he said, Masas Se'achel Mokum Kodesh doesn't have to be the Beis Hamikdash. Your mouth should be a holy place. Kodesh. To put in the, you think the same thing when it comes to eating the Shabbos food. When you're eating, you make kiddush and you're sitting down. You have zmirs, you're saying Divrei Torah, and you're eating. It should be Makom Kodesh, that the mouth, to put the food, the Shabbos food, into Makom Kodesh, and to be at least people that are working, that are conscious of this Avoda, of Kedusha Dibur, Kedusha Sapeh. Back inside. But as always, Adam Tzarech Lihizahir. You have to be careful. Slowly Hishaveh Mikol Nefila. That when you invariably make a mistake or fail, because this is a very hard thing, not to become tzibrochen from it. Overfrat Avodah al Kedusha Sadibur, which is so hard. It's probably the hardest Avodah is Kedusha Sadibur. But it's very common that a person says something that on any further consideration and thought, you realize it was chaval that you said you didn't need to say. And you feel you're a sincere person, and you feel bad. It bothers you that you said it. Of course, if it's something that you have to ask mechila for, that you hurt somebody, that you have to do what you have to do. Try to fix that when it comes to Ben Allah Chaveru. That obviously needs tshuva, needs a tikkun. But tzarech l'skasha hakol me'Hashem Yisbarach. Mekuven ba'ofen achi tov vein ma'al l'star. That if it already came out, like everything else in our lives, that there's a reason why you did fail. But that's also those, for whatever reason, those words, apparently there was hashgacha, that those words somehow make their way into the world, and that you would have to now do tshuva for these words. Again, how that affects somebody else is Hashem's mysterious ways. Obviously, if it's something that you could fix, that you could take care of. Obviously, if you said something you weren't allowed to say, you have to do tshuva. It's all part of what Hashem wants you to do in the world. So this is so now at this point, if you already made a mistake, instead of agonizing over it, just try to fix it. To ask for forgiveness, to be more careful, but not to make yourself meshugah and miserable over the mistake that was made. To do the best you can to fix it, and that it shouldn't happen again, and that's all. On the ma'achat tshuva tikun, and after you've worked on some tshuva and doing what you can to repair this, Then you have to believe in the greatness of tshuva, in the power of tshuva. Rachmei Hashem's baruch, Hashem's love. And to believe that in the end, if you tried your best to do tshuva, not to go around now thinking, I messed everything up, I can't believe I said, I messed everything up, I ruined everything, everything is ruined. That's not what you should be working on now. Not to be broken at all, just to go weiter. Daled. Chelik Yisodi Noisa Kedusha. There's another very basic Avoda when it comes to Kedusha. Shmir Samachshava. Not only what you say, but what you think about. Shmir Samachshava. Sholachshav Lahar Bera. To try not to think, even for a moment, not to think about things that are not good. Moshe Kosov, Lashesuach Re'Levavchem. Shmir Samachshava, it's a madrega. Therefore, the person has machshavas that are not good, thoughts that are not good. One has to fight against these thoughts. But you have to know how to fight against this. The different ways of fighting against negative thoughts or inappropriate thoughts. These are things we've spoken a lot about. Not to let something simmer, to linger in your mind, but lagarisha, to immediately get rid of it. Not to allow this thought to grow and to have children and not to allow it to remain. The faster you get rid of it, the sooner you'll be able to return to Vekas Hashem, the proper thoughts. But the derech of Hashem when it comes to machshavas is lo l'hisasek itam, not to get involved with them. What does that mean? Lo l'hisasek itam. Tahainu shlo yikanis lodon b'meshahem oimreis. Not to start making a whole pilpul in what you're thinking about and how this is. You're not allowed to think about this and why did you think about all these things? That's not mahalach. Because then you're giving chashivas to these thoughts. You're honoring these thoughts. You're machshav these thoughts by going into them more. You're machshav them. If there's a negative thought, if there's an ugly thought, to move on to something else. To be megarish it immediately. Not even l'shem, tshuva, to start thinking about and working through and fixing and so on. And don't try to think of ways, that are the opposite of those thoughts. Just go away from them. Because by staying in that machshava, even if you're fighting with that machshava, like Rabbi Nachman, I mentioned many times, Rabbi Nachman said that when if a person tries to break his midas, a bad midah, then he has two bad midas. When you break it. When it comes to machshavas, this is something you see a lot in certain svarim, and the derech of Hashem is b'chlal not to be oisik, and even though it looks like it's the frum thing to do, to have a whole conversation about it, to work on it, to talk about it. These things is better. Lazavotam, just to go away from them. Vayonis v'yetzer chutza, to go away from it. The same way I tell, this is a conversation I have very often with when there's young people or even older people that are involved in a relationship that's not good. So what'll happen is that the guy knows this is terrible and he wants to break up with his girlfriend. So then he'll ask me the question, so Rabbi, how do I do this? How do I break up? So I'll say something like, just break up right now. So that it's broken, it's finished. So they'll say that I don't think it's nice. I mean, I think I should. We've been going at it for 6 months or something, and I'm just gonna not. So what do you want to do? So so he's going to have a conversation about it. So it means to someplace, of course, has to be private because it's personal things, and to go to someplace nice and quiet to have a conversation about it. No. So it's so counterintuitive because the person is a nice guy, and this is my girlfriend. So it's so rude to just break up with so I'll say something like so. Okay, send a text message. It was nice knowing you. Everything should be good. Whatever. No, but he wants to have a meeting in person, a conversation with his pretty little girlfriend. He wants to make sure he could see how she's crying, and it's a deep thing, and then there's a whole drama that's involved in this. If you just say, it's done. I tried, didn't work out. Sorry if I hurt your feelings, if I embarrassed you. Whatever it is, and finished. You have to get. That's why there's such a thing as text message. And here you don't have to write a whole letter. Now you could use a text message. It doesn't have to be a voice message. It can be a text message. And they start arguing with me all the time. This is not nice. It's not nice. I said, I never knew you to be such a nice person. You're so makpid with guys. I never saw you have such a fear of being not nice. But when it comes to your girlfriend, you're so afraid of hurting her feelings. You're so nervous about it. I know it's devar, like when it comes to your girlfriend. But this is all a dimming that comes to me. It's a heart that you have to go into a whole pilpul, into a whole conversation, a whole discussion. When all the Rebbe Shalom is saying to you is, get out, run for your life. It's better for her, it's better for you. Get out of this. Just run away from it. But isn't it, you're hurting a person's feelings? It's such a cold thing to do. You want to be able to say it in a nice way and to have a whole conversation about it. It's all coming from the other side. And it's all mislabesh in this thing of menschlichkeit. You became such a big Bal Derech Eretz. If you're such a big Bal Derech Eretz, you wouldn't have done what you did for the past 6 months. You're not such a big Bal Derech Eretz. And when it comes to breaking up, then all the guys and all the girls, they become Bal Derech Eretz. It's an amazing thing. Is that the right way? We should go over. We should talk about it. This is okay. It sounds silly. It's for children, for kids, but we know that it's a very strong thing in it, and there are adults that fall into this very easily as well. Explaining to another person why this isn't appropriate. You don't have to explain. You're enjoying the explanation too much. You don't have to explain it. Just stop talking. Just stop. Just go away from it. The person will think that you're not such a nice person. Okay, so what? But you don't have to have a whole discussion of why this is not the right thing to do. Why this is not appropriate. Why I'm a married person and I don't have these kind of. And I'm an Orthodox Jew. All these deep words. I'm only talking about things that I've had conversations with people about over the years. That they've as religious Jews, we don't do these things. So you're having this conversation over a cup of coffee with somebody. Why we can't have this conversation? So don't have the conversation about why you can't have the conversation. Just don't have the conversation. No, we have to talk about why we can't have the conversation because you're enjoying that conversation. Why we're not able to have the conversation? Just don't have the conversation. And you're worried that it's not Derech Eretz. Your wife would say, just don't have the conversation. You don't have to talk to the person about why you're not having the conversation. If she doesn't understand, she's not for you anyway. So these are all ways that the mind works. The ikr is, that's what he's saying, the Avodah here is not to get into asik with wrong machshavos at all. Come to the dibur, not to get into an asik. Not at all. Because when you get into this whole pilpul, it's only ma'ara than more. It only brings more. And you shouldn't to think about how you have to push this away. So what does it mean? Not to think about how to push them away, just to go away from it. So the Sfarim say that's the union of Elonei Mamre, whatever the connection is not going to right now. But Mamre is Machshava Ra, Machshava Acheres. You have a bad thought, You don't fight against this thought. Machshava acheres. Machshava acheres. You replace it with something else. You go somewhere else. Shemiyad yaschel aksha machshavas acheres. Shitavsu es meichai. Fill your mind with something else. Don't try to get rid of this thought. Replace it with something else. Fill your mind with a different thought. Something good. Or something stop about the family, whatever, something else. Fill your mind with something else. About work. Fill your mind with something else. Don't fight against this mashava. Just put something there that pushes it out. Unless you're the Rogachover, Reb Chaim Oizer, Reb Tzaddik, you can't have two thoughts at the same time. So if you put another one in there, the first one goes away. That's how it works. So that by putting in a different machshava, then the first machshava is going to go away. And the Svarim tells us one of the most powerful things is to say over Torah, to try to say Torah that things that the person should always have, things that he remembers by heart. To say something that you learn, to say it over in a strong way. If you can't, as I call machshava acheres toiva, listen, any other machshava, whatever the machshava is, just not the machshava that's bad. I feel the machshava is b'inyani rishus, even when it comes to whatever b'inyani rishus work and things like that. The main thing is to go away from it right away. Of course, there's a high madrega of putting into your thinking about shemus of Hashem, different names of Hashem, shemus of Kedusha. And to be very careful, not to start drowning in this guilt. How come I'm having these disgusting thoughts? You don't think about that at all, because that just gets you to stay in the thought. Because you're disgusting, so you're having disgusting thoughts, and you continue on with the disgusting thought because you're disgusting. Not at all. You say, not to think at all about any thoughts of guilt or what's wrong with me. All you could do, and all Hashem asks of you and wants you to do is leave right away. Do your best, just run away from it. And by doing that, you're giving nachas Hashem u'mesaken harbe. In the note, b'derech yes, the Avodah Hashem is tsar. Very often, the Avodah Hashem have tsar. The person, a serious Avodah Hashem, feels so bad and disgusting. How can I have these terrible thoughts? That you were created to fight against these things. Not only that, but we know that it brings up very, very big things to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that when that's your avoda, to be in this milchama, to run away from it. Therefore it's forbidden to be upset and to have chalishas hadas. Why do I have these bad thoughts? Now, if you're looking at bad things and you have bad thoughts, then that's something else. But if you have, what happens is a person has machshavas, and not to feel bad. Not to think of yourself that you're a bad person. You should think that I was sent to fight this milchama. That's why I'm bringing wonderful gifts to Hashem by doing that. And if you continue fighting, you'll win. Not to be misyayish, not to be misyayish. That's the ikka thing. Be careful how you fight the milchama. Again, the ikka milchama is to leave right away. The Talmud even though there are many things that are written in many svarim about how to fight this war, if you can't, you feel that you can't, the strongest thing is to cry out to Hashem. Help me to get out of this. Help me. To bring Hashem into that machshava. Because when you bring Hashem into that machshava, Hashem's going to take you out. You see right away. If you bring Hashem into that machshava, please, Hashem, help me, and I want to get out of this, then 100% Hashem's will take you out of it. Right?